Our film starts with two EMTs having a conversation. Jack is sulking because his girlfriend left him for a yoga instructor, and Roger is trying to tell him that women in general aren't worth the effort he's putting into sulking over them, especially his ex who he didn't like. On his way home from work one night, he sees a woman covered in blood laying in a pile of garbage in an alley. He goes to help her, but she freaks out. When she refuses to go to the hospital, he considers leaving her, but when he sees the two neighborhood drug dealers waiting, he convinces her to come back to his place. As he attempts to clean her off, he asks her information about herself, but she seems to have no memory of who she is or how she got there, and passes out. The next night, Jack tells Roger about the situation, who calls him stupid, as he believes she's probably a drug addict that is probably going to rob him. He says he trusts her and believes that's not the situation, but clearly Roger thinks he's stupid. On the way home, his landlord complains that she hasn't gotten her rent, and he retorts that his plumbing hasn't been fixed, and when it does, then that's when she'll get rent. Jack heads inside and can't find the girl. He goes to his room and sees her relaxing on the windowsill. She tells him that she's sick. After showering, he gives her some of his ex's clothes to put on. He sneaks a peek at her as she changes, as he clearly has a thing for her. When he goes to sleep on the couch, she insists that Jack takes the bed and asks if she can sit with him until he falls asleep. During the conversation, she tells him her name is Danica, but he falls asleep shortly after that. When he wakes up the next night, he finds Danica on the couch shivering badly. He tries to bring her medicine and water, but she can't keep it down. Once again, she refuses to go to the hospital. Jack then calls Roger to examine her, and he tells her that she's going through withdrawals, which Jack refuses to believe. As Jack goes to leave for work, his ex Sherry shows up demanding to get her stuff. They argue, and when he leaves, she takes out a key and lets herself in. As she is gathering CDs, she's confronted by Danica. Sherry calls her a bitch for wearing her clothes, and the last thing you see is Danica's eyes glowing bright blue and her getting a smirk. When Jack comes home, he finds Sherry dead on the floor. Danica, covered in blood, says it just happened and doesn't want Jack to look at her. She says she bit her and wants to know what's wrong with her. Jack, instead of answering, goes in for a kiss before the start of a really inappropriate, ill-timed, and pretty gross sex scene that doesn't go very far, as she then bites him. He gets mad and demands to look in her mouth and finds fangs. He then drags her to the window and opens the shades and sees her skin burn. She runs into the bathroom and he follows her, now concerned. He then makes a joke that since she killed his ex, he doesn't know whether to call the police or buy her flowers. Jack then goes to clean up the crime scene with some weird Barney-like background music, which is seemingly the crime scene cleanup theme for this movie. Jack and Danica then try to figure out what to do with the body. Jack locks it in the trunk to figure out what to do with it later. The next night, at work, Jack tells Roger about how he feels about Danica without going into the vampire details, and Roger surprisingly tells him to stick with her as she seems to make him happy, in spite of being what he believes to be a street junkie. When Jack comes back, a half-naked Danica jumps on him, freaking him out. She shows him she is healed and makes a lot of Dracula and vampire puns. He takes a shower, and when he comes back, she's back to shivering on the floor, but says she'd rather starve than feed on someone again. Jack decides to find a way to help. First, he gets her a cat, which he tries to feed on, but immediately throws it up. A frustrated Jack then goes back to work and steals some blood from a work fridge, with another paramedic clearly seeing him. He gives her the blood, and she can't take that either as it's too cold. He then offers his arm, which she takes, but has issues letting go. She tells him that wasn't enough and she needs more. Jack then decides to trick the neighborhood drug dealer to be her next victim. She shows up behind him in just her underwear and feeds on him, apparently getting really turned on by it. She panics when Jack looks disgusted by her feeding. She tries to explain to him that feeding is like being starved for food and sex at the same time, and she begs for him not to hate her. As he opens up the trunk, Sherry, now a vampire, jumps at and attacks Jack, demanding her CDs. Danica breaks a mop over her back, then stabs her with it, which stops her momentarily. This happens a few times before they finally get it right. He then brags over her corpse about his new woman before stuffing both bodies in the trunk. The next night, Danica starts having forever talk with Jack. They then begin kissing, and Danica pushes him away, saying that she was losing control and that she needs more blood. Jack then goes to the other drug dealer and sends him into the bedroom, with Danica leaving Jack to clean up yet another body. Post-feeding shower, Danica is back to her post-feeding stage 5 clinger routine about love at first sight. The next night, Danica dresses up and wants to go out. He says it's not a good idea, but he's against it. She then goes into the "Are you embarrassed to be with me" talk. He then worries that someone might recognize her, but before he can tell her no, she's gone. That night, he then had a dream that she tries to kill him. When he wakes up, she comes back with a half-naked woman. She says that she's for them. Her idea is to have the girl there to bite so she doesn't hurt him when she loses control. The plan works, with the downside being that next day, Jack wakes up covered in blood in bed next to the woman's body. Jack loses it and says he can't deal with it anymore and makes her clean it up, which leaves Danica on the bed sobbing. As he's cleaning, the landlord forces her way into the apartment and freaks out when he sees the mess. Danica then attacks the landlord and knocks Jack out. At work, Roger confronts Jack about the missing blood and tells Jack how undependent he's been since meeting Danica. After an EMT run, he sends Jack on an errand and goes to his place to confront Danica. He finds the empty blood packet in the garbage and assumes Jack has been giving her blood transfusions for withdrawal. That's when Danica goes into Mama Bear mode and attempts to bite Roger, but is saved by Jack walking in. Jack sees Danica fanging out and tries to get Roger to leave before she loses control, which he is thankfully successful at. Jack reprimands Danica for trying to kill his only friend. She says she's hungry and needs to feed. He then tricks her into going into the bedroom and locks her in. He leaves with her pounding on the door to let her out. He heads to Rogers and tells him that he wants out of the relationship with Danica, but is scared to tell her. Roger then makes a joke about the best way to a woman's heart is through her chest, which gives Jack an idea and he heads off. He heads back to his place and gives Danica the breakup talk. She tries to convince him that a little murder and daily body hiding shouldn't come between them. Jack stands his ground despite her sounding ridiculously pitiful. When he tries to open the door, she breaks it down and attacks him. Roger walks in just in time, and Jack finally admits to him that she's a vampire. He of course doesn't believe him and decides to walk in just to be thrown just like Jack. Jack attempts to go after her, but she ends up biting him. As she bites him, Roger gets her with the spike, killing her once and for all. The film ends with a bloody Jack telling Roger he doesn't want to end up like her. The last thing we see in the post-credits scene is Roger feeding Jack blood in the basement. Thanks for watching. If you like these recaps, please leave a like and subscribe and hit the bell icon to know every time I update. There is now an option to be a channel member where you'll get access to exclusive recaps from late night vampire catalogs like Showtime, Cinemax After Dark, USA Up All Night, and much more. If you want to help my channel grow, please check out my Patreon where members can get exclusive content that can't be uploaded on YouTube along with download options. Link is in the description.